So the Miami Heat are pretty good. Currently sitting at the third seed with a record of 32 wins, 20 losses. Now, granted, I know it is kind of difficult to say that about a team that's currently on a 3-game losing streak. However, I'm going to tell you why I think the Miami Heat just might be the next NBA champions. Let's talk about it next, guys. Coming off of a 2020-2021 campaign, which seen the Miami Heat finish with the 6th overall seed. Now, unfortunately, they would be eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, being swept by the Milwaukee Bucks. Call it a little bit of payback, because the previous year, the Miami Heat would shock everyone and go on a NBA Finals run, and actually included the favorite Bucks being beat, as well as my Boston Celtics, before ultimately meeting the Los Angeles Lakers in a very entertaining, just one of the most incredible performances you would see from Jimmy Butler and his triple-double, giving it everything he had, but ultimately would come up short to the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, currently, as I mentioned, they are the 3rd seed in the East. Not even a week ago, they were the 1st seed, currently on a 3-game losing streak. 2 of those losses are to the Toronto Raptors, another one actually to the Boston Celtics. And actually, that first of the 3 losses was in a triple overtime slugfest. Now, granted, keep in mind, no Jimmy Butler during this run, no PJ Tucker. Kyle Lowry has actually missed the last 8 or 9 games total, so definitely depleted. But this team is no stranger to that. Now, again, coming into this season, mixed expectations. They were coming off of a finals campaign a year before, then kind of a disappointing, so it was just kind of a mixed reaction. However, you cannot say that Pat Riley was not making changes, because coming into the season, the Miami Heat would sign perennial All-Star and NBA champion Kyle Lowry in a sign and trade, which would see Goran Dragic end up with the Toronto Raptors. But in addition, they would also secure another champion in PJ Tucker. Now, PJ, of course, is more of the 3-and-D role, not quite the all-star like Kyle Lowry. However, he was coming off of a campaign with the Milwaukee Bucks where he would win a championship in a pivotal 3-and-D role, hitting huge shots and pretty much guarding the other team's best player. Do you remember that performance he had against Kevin Durant in the Milwaukee Bucks-Brooklyn Nets series? Absolutely incredible. Now, they would, of course, lose some players. Andre Iguodala, Kendrick Nunn. But they would still have one of, if not the best coach in the entire NBA, in Eric Spoelstra. He has been their coach since 2008, so nearly 15 years together. And with those off-season additions, you would be looking at a starting 5, which would be Kyle Lowry, the veteran point guard, Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, PJ Tucker, and Bam Adebayo. Now, just quickly breaking down this starting 5, guys, you were talking about 2 stars being Jimmy Butler and Bam. Jimmy being their superstar, their top 10 talent, top 12 player in the world. And then, like I said, Bam being, in my opinion, one of the top 3 big men in the entire world. And when you surround those guys with a Kyle Lowry, who's a champion, one of the best point guards in the NBA, and oh, by the way, is a career clutch 3-point percentage shooter, and then Duncan Robinson, who is one of the most lethal 3-point shooters in today's game. And then, by the way, you had another champion in PJ Tucker, who is just a lights-out shooter as well. We'll get to stats here in a minute, but just an absolute elite starting 5. Now, when you look at the rest of this roster and how it is filled out, look no further than 6th Man of the Year contender, Tyler Herro. Now, Tyler Herro, coming off the bench, averaging about 33 minutes a game, is averaging over 20 points a game, nearly 5 rebounds and 4 assists. He has been phenomenal for this team, and oh, by the way, he's only 22 years old in his 3rd year. Now, when you look at the rest of this roster, and me, guys, no surprise, I am a Boston Celtics fan. We often talk about being able to surround our stars, our Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, with shooters and elite shooters. Well, if we had the rotation that the Miami Heat had, we would not be saying that. And that is why when I really started to deep dive into this team, it was just absolute, utter, unbelievable how just incredible this roster is constructed. Now, a guy that a lot of people will be taking notice of recently is a guy by the name of Max Strus. Now, Max, just the other night against the Boston Celtics, had 9 3-pointers on 17 attempts. He's had multiple 30-point performances here recently. And just as you can see right now, he's averaging double-digit points, over 11 points a game. He is a 25-year-old forward in his 3rd season out of DePaul. He is an undrafted guy. And oh, by the way, Boston Celtics fan, add him to another one that got away, as he actually played with the Boston Celtics as his first NBA franchise in his rookie preseason before being cut. But he is an absolute lights-out shooter who is making a strong case to start for this team. And another reason why you've heard a lot of Duncan Robinson in trade rumors recently, because Strus is a 40+% 3-point shooter and has just been elite this year. Now, what is crazy about this team? We've already talked about the starting 5. We've already talked about their 6th Man of the Year candidate, and now basically Strus has their 7. What is very interesting, is just ironic, is Strus has 2 other gentlemen on this roster that are almost identical to him as far as their situation and their current standings. Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin, Cody Martin's twin, almost have identical stories to Max Strus. Now, Gabe would also go undrafted, Caleb a 2nd-round pick, so 2 undrafted and a 2nd-round pick. All 3 of these gentlemen in their mid-20s, 25, 26, in their 3rd year, right? All 3 of them last year played right around 13, 14, 15 minutes a game in a limited role. And as you can see this year, all 3 of them are now playing in the mid-20s. All 3 of them are averaging between 9 and 11 points a game. And all 3 of them are near 40% 3-point shooters. So again, let's really look at the big picture here and break this down. You again have a starting 5 that consists of Jimmy Butler, Bam, Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, and PJ Tucker. And then you round that out with Tyler Herro, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, and Caleb Martin? That's a 9-man rotation, guys. And I'm about to say something that I guarantee is going to actually make you go, just wow. And how did that go under the table or under the radar? You know what that is? There's a gentleman by the name of Victor Oladipo. Maybe you heard of him. I mean, 2-time All-Star, 1st-team All-NBA in defense, led the league in steals, had a 23, 5-4 season with the Pacers. Oh, and by the way, just a year ago with the Houston Rockets in 20 games, he averaged, 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists? Well, word has it that this gentleman will be returning in February. And did you forget he is on the Miami Heat's roster? This is Victor Oladipo, who is a career 18-4-4, multiple-time All-Star, who is going to be returning to this team, who I just went over that 9-man rotation to be number 10? Or 11 if you include Markieff Morris? Or Dwayne Dedmon? What about 41-year-old Udonis Haslem? The fact that they have an assistant coach essentially playing, and why that is important is because of what that is to the locker room from a leadership standpoint. Now, Udonis has only played in 9 games this season and only averaged 6 points in those games. But what he is to that franchise is like what Eric Spoelstra of his 15 years is as well. Because Haslem has been there his entire 20-plus. I mean, how long has Udonis been with Miami now? And think about what that presence is to the locker room. Going over briefly their run this year so far, guys. Essentially, they came out of the gates on fire, winning 7 out of their first 9 games. Now, they would see a November record of 8 wins, 7 losses, and follow that up in December with a record of 10 wins and 5 losses. Now, in January, with the loss to the Celtics the other night, they would finish the month 9 wins with 6 losses. One thing I do want to really point out for those that don't pay attention to this team is that there was a gentleman by the name of Bam. Maybe you've heard of him as well. Did you know he missed 22 games this year? This gentleman was out from November 29th, which was his last game against Denver. And by the way, he had 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists. And he would not play again until January 17th. So from November 29th till January 17th. He missed all of December, and in that return game in January, he had 14 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists against Toronto. He missed 22 total games, and the Heat would actually go 14-9 in those 22 games he was gone. And oh, by the way, if you look at their 20 losses, 7 of them are by 3 points or less or came in overtime. So when you had those 8 games they lost without Bam and the 7 losses that were by 3 points or less, that is 15 of their 20 losses. I mean, and I guarantee if we deep dive even more into the other 5, how many games has Jimmy missed, or Kyle Lowry, who's missed the last 8, or PJ Tucker? By the way, PJ Tucker, I am getting a little older, guys, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. But remember when we were talking about 3-point shooters, and I mean, just to go back to the starting 5 and what Duncan Robinson and PJ Tucker mean, just the gravity and the weight and their presence just changes everything, even if they're not shooting their best. You know, Duncan is having a down year considering he's a 40% career shooter, and he's still shooting 37%. But how he impacts the game because of the respect. But look at what PJ Tucker is doing this year. I almost feel it's a typo as I even look at it now. On 3 attempts from 3, he's averaging 47%. 3 attempts, 47%. I almost need you to clarify that I'm not seeing that wrong. That's a 4 and not a 3, correct? That is insane. So again, you are looking at a roster that is built up of a bunch of guys that have already been to the finals together. The additions from the offseason are both champions. And you put 5 or 6 40% 3-point shooters around your 2 stars. And oh, by the way, you've had another multiple-time All-Star who's going to be coming back any game now, just in time for the playoff run. And you pretty much have a front runner for 6th Man of the Year. My predictions, just to finish this out, guys, I honestly do believe that this Miami Heat team is favorites to win the East. And I honestly believe that this is going to be the 2021-2022 champion. I do. It was, to me, either them or Philadelphia, who I thought would represent the East. Now, Philly, I'll go into them in another video. I thought if they would execute the Ben Simmons trade and do it the right way, just with what Embiid's doing and everything, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen, so they might be a year away. I don't believe the Nets, with their health and KD and then Harden now, his uncertainty, and Kyrie, even where they do, he can only play in 3 out of the 4 games in a series, like, if they have home court. So maybe the Nets are tanking a little bit so they don't get home court so that Kyrie can play in 4 out of the instead of 3s. But it's pretty much the Bulls is another one, but because right now you got the Bulls at 1st place, and you've got is it the Sixers now in 2nd place, with the Miami Heat slipping to 3rd with these last 2 losses. But to me, when this team is healthy, we've talked about this roster, we've talked about just that 10 or even 11 or 12. When you're talking about Markieff Morris and Dwayne Dedmon as the 11 and 12, Victor Oladipo as the number, 10, I mean, this roster and rotation, especially when they get to the playoffs and they get to sharpen it down to just, their top 8 or 9 with that coach. I mean, remember, Boston fans, we've seen firsthand what that team who had an inferior roster to us, that we had an excellent team. They were able to beat both Milwaukee and the Celtics in that bubble year, and neither team, they didn't have a better roster than either team. They were coached better, and they just wanted it more, and their team and their chemistry, a lot of those same guys are still together, and they've just added a bunch of champions around them. I really do think Miami is legit. I do believe they are a contender. And, I mean, that's pretty much it, guys. Just to wrap up, if you've made it to this point in the video, I just thank you so much for your time. If you didn't get a chance to see, I just dropped a video on Celtics Corner. It was reviewing the Miami and Celtics game, as well as all the Jaylen Brown rumors. If you've heard or if you've not heard, Jaylen Brown, there's a report from Heavy.com that's stating that he may be looking to get out of Boston. Does Jaylen Brown want out? Will he ask for a trade this offseason? So, and there's some very credible, reliable sources that are saying that. Go check out either one of those videos. But why I mention that is basically Celtics Corner is what we're going to be putting a lot of our Celtics content. Not all. I will be still uploading a lot of my throwbacks. A lot. Obviously, I'm not abandoning my Celtics, but all of our Celtics content can be unloaded there, which will allow us to be able to put other stuff on our main channel. So you'll see me putting other teams, other hot topics around the NBA on my main Jags channel. And the best way I thought to incorporate it is when they're playing the Celtics. So the Heat just played the Celtics. I do a Heat video. We play the Hornets tonight. I'll probably do a look into the Hornets and just so on and so forth. But again, Jags to riches. James Peters, thank you so much for your time, guys. Have an incredible conclusion to your day. Let's go get a win tonight against the Hornets. Take care, guys.